So, because we both got the same funding, and then we wouldn't repeat anything for multiple times, so we just decided to combine our togethers. And so, my name is Lisa. I'm third year student, MSci Human Genetics student.
And I'm Madhumila, and I'm also a third year student, but in genetics, and I'm on the MSci pathway as well.
Okay, so the application timeline around mid-December, you'll get this is a screenshot from one of the document that I received from Bull Catherine. She used to be the communication lady. This year it's Alex, so I don't know if we'll get it, but let's say we'll get it. It should be sent to you guys around mid-December, and there will be all the list of labs that will be accepting students. And then as you could see, the application deadline is gonna be mid-January, so that's when I apply for it. And then I had my interview between February, March. Once I was accepted, I started to look for the funding organization. And again, because I'm an international student, not British, there are some funding organization that I wasn't able to apply. And yeah, so I was just looking for some funding organizations that I was eligible for. And yeah, the funding body that I did, which was the Genetics Society, um, their deadline was in end of March, so that's when I applied for the funding as well.
Okay, I'm just going to elaborate on that a little bit. So there are like around 15 projects under GEE that we got. So GEE focuses on genetics, evolution, and environment, and you can apply to multiple projects. So I would recommend that you apply to more than even interested in one, because like one of my friends just applied to one, but then that one got cancelled because the postdoc went on paternal leave. And the interview process, it's pretty subjective. It depends on which lab you're going to. Mine was very casual. They just asked me about what my interests are and why I like to work at lab. But I heard that for some people it was a bit more rigorous. They had to solve some experiments and things like that. And Lisa and I applied to the Genetics Society funding body, but apply other ones as well. There's Well Trust, there's Biochemical Society. And even if you don't get these fundings, I think UCL gives provisions to those who don't get these fundings.
Yeah, like one is so, but you'll still get the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fact that we all have 99% identical genome, but then that 0.1% difference makes such difference, that kind of really fascinate me. And that's how I wanted to pursue my career in human genetics. So I did mainly talk about it. You
Yeah.
can
So this question's like really personal. So it just depends on what led you into that field of research. So for me, it was just like pretty early on when people used to say, I look more like my dad than my mom. I was like, why? How's that possible? And what is happening? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? And also, like in my family, there's hypertension and hypothyroidism that runs. So I'm like, how does that really work? How does it like pass on across generations? And if there's any environmental factor to it, any genetic factor to it. So things like that got me into genetics.
and then for like because my project was on the origin of life, I talked about, well, as besides from the human genetics or personalized medicine, I was originally interested in astrobiology, and because my project that I was related to the origin of life, so I talked about my interest in astrobiology just to make the connection and explore my interest a little bit like deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, my area of research was about sexual antagonism, and I got to know about it first in my second year lecture in evolutionary genetics. And it was like we've all seen it. So like for example, in peacocks, the male peacock and the female peacock are so different, but we don't really sit back and think about like why did it evolve that way, or how does it really benefit the peacocks if they're like so morphologically different. So I was like, I was pretty curious about that, so I got into it.
Yeah. And then for the last bit, I talked about how me able to be in the lab group like, smaller lab, because like for lectures, the ratio between professor and student is just so huge that you barely got to know professor, or you barely got to exchange your knowledge. You barely, well, you may ask question, you might have time for that, but then you don't have time to express your opinions, right? So I wrote about how me having being able to work in a smaller group where the student to professor ratio is smaller would make me grow as a human and as a researcher. So yeah, that's what I mainly focused on. Oh, I also talked about how I wanted to develop my dry lab skill, because all the two internship that I've done before was on wet lab. So yeah.
Yeah, so the entire experience is pretty awesome because you just think about it very theoretically in your lectures, but then in these internships you actually get to implement it practically, and you're working with these like-minded individuals who have a lot of experience in the field that you're interested in, and you get like an insight into like what your future can be if you continue to do research in this field.
Yeah. Okay, so my project, like I said, was on the origin of nucleogenesis. It's quite complicated. If I was to explain, I would need another 10 to 15 minutes, so I wouldn't go too deep. If you're interested in, send me an email, I can explain you. But yeah, like I said, I use the dry lab approach. So I use comparative genomics and phylogenetics. So not to freak you guys out, but then this was how my computer looked all the time. It's not as bad as it looks. Once you understand what you're doing, it's quite simple and it's easy. But then again, because I didn't have a lot of experience in dry, those R computing, terminal, Python, those stuff. So I did spend quite a lot of time learning. Yeah. And it's just my results from phylogenomics. I just had a long, long paper. Yeah. It's good to visualize because you understand a lot by visualizing it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, okay. So mine was about sexual antagonism. So I worked with flies that were experimentally evolved for 15 generations. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just the gist of it. So we had like two treatments. One was female rich, so we had more females and only one male. And then they were uh, and at the end you have um only the female beneficial alleles are selected for. And that's the opposite in treatment because there'll be more males and only one female. So the male beneficial alleles will be selected for. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so using these experimentally evolved flies which had the female beneficial alleles or the male beneficial alleles, I did a fitness assay with regular flies that were not experimentally evolved to see how do they differ in fitness. So by fitness here, I mean like how many progeny flies do they have, how many eggs do they lay. Yeah, this was the entire process I did. I had to like individually count how many flies there were in each vial. So it was quite rigorous and redundant. So my entire experiment was mostly rigorous fly work. So I had to like collect versions, sex them, things like that. And then I also had to do data analysis in R using all the data I got after counting flies.
Yeah, so once you're accepted to Genetics Society, I mean, there are two things that you have to do. One is to attend workshop that will take place in September. This year, it was held at University of Bath. So me and Madumla, we both went to Bath. And then the second thing that you have to do is to write a 800-word report and submit it to them so that they can put it on their monthly magazine, I believe, right? Or maybe website, but who knows? Yeah. So this is actually Medulla. Unlike UCL University of Bath, it was located in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere. Our map didn't work. We were walking so many, like 10K every day. Just we and yeah, we just drive to and building is it's like a dorm building that we have at UCL, but it's for University of Bath. It's called Millennium Center for Evolution. This was where we went every day to listen to, our friends' presentation and those. And again, we also got to explore the city. If you know, this is the Lady Dunbury's house from Bridgerton. It was it was really again it was really beautiful, and yeah, it's me presenting my project.
Yeah, so this is just a group of all students who came to the conference. Lisa's not there because she was in Paris, but yeah, next photo. That's me. I was giving the talk there. And yeah, that was our scenic walk from the University of Bath to the city. It was a long, rigorous trek, but it looked pretty.
Yeah, so thanks for listening. Here's our email and WhatsApp. If you have any question, you can ask now or you can drop us a message.